All right. Unlike last year when I failed miserably with my fantasy football team, I am here, Joe Gilio, with the King Reilly Dunn. We are here to help you, and this time we're going to listen to what Riley says. Okay, that's going to be number one. But I really just want to have a conversation that I think we tried last year.
Yeah.
But a conversation I want to crystallize for people that is the best way to think about and approach your fantasy draft. We have our own coming up next Wednesday, September 4th, and we're going to talk a little bit about that because I think it will be helpful to have a conversation about what we're going to be doing this year.
Yep.
But I also just want to go back and take a 10,000 foot view, which is what you are really good at. And I want to talk about players, not specific players necessarily who you should draft, but what teams do you want to invest in? Because if we rewind to last year, I'm sitting here you're telling me these things. You're like the Jaguars, the Colts, were early.
I had way heavy Chicago backs
last year. Right. Okay. And I'm sitting here going, oh, with my second pick, I'm going to take Miles Sanders. Oh my God. My season was over in the first week of the year. My second pick, or my third round pick technically, was Darren Waller from the Giants, who were garbage.
Yeah.
The only way I could have been worse is if I had taken Aaron Rodgers. Oh, wait, I did. So what I really want to do, and you guys have seen all this stuff on social media, who to draft, who to avoid, this and that, and all that. This is not that. This is more of you and I having a philosophical and statistical discussion about what teams are worth investing in and which ones you should avoid.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if the viewers at home can see how thrilled I am for that lead in because you guys listening out there, you gotta give a lot of love to King Gilio here because
I'm not the king.
Because this guy coordinating me, there's a lot of kids in the mix. We got an alt bev thing going on. It could be very difficult to get on what I'm going to show up and actually want to talk about and all that, right? Oh my God, it is like you are reading off of my page, which I did not share with you in advance, that what I really want to talk about is how to think, regardless of specific players, there'll be some implications in there, but how to think about going into your draft. And for me, I always start now, having learned, the question to me that is the most important question to ask going into any draft.
Joking over here. I'm interrupting you by joking.
Which teams would you be most frustrated to not have exposure to? Meaning, draft ends, you can do a little thought exercise where you're imagining the draft has ended. Which teams are you most like, dang it, man, I didn't leave with any X? And the reason that is such a helpful exercise is, sure, it is going to naturally be the teams that you think are the best offenses, probably. But it's not always just a list of who are the best offenses. And what I mean by that is before last weekend. So last weekend was the 16th East Coast Overdose draft. As I mentioned, it's one of the highest stakes leagues in the country. It's been running a really long time. Great group of guys, incredibly sharp. It's an auction, and each year, everybody is there to bring it. And so it was this weekend. And when I was doing my prep and just talking with some of the other owners there, I started realizing and talking things through that there are a couple of offenses who, yeah, they're extremely good offenses, but I wasn't necessarily going to be as disappointed leaving without players from those teams as you might think. And then there were a couple other that I'm like, if I don't leave, my number one with a bullet for this year is if I don't leave with pieces of Houston, I'm going to be mad.
Okay.
For me, I'm starting to realize, and it was actually my brother gets a ton of credit for this. He came to me about a week ago and was like, are we just all overthinking this? Like, how is CJ Stroud, who looks so fantastic, they just danked out his wide receiver room even further, bringing in Diggs. They've got Joe Mixon in there, who, even if he's a little washed, which maybe he is, I don't know. But even if he is, like, there's some intention there. And if you kind of think forward, like, will it shock you if that team made the AFC Championship, looks like the next great thing, and just absolutely produced? No, it wouldn't shock you at all. So I wanted some exposure there. Miami is the other one that, yeah, we already know they're really kick-ass and they are pricey. Even knowing that, I love Mike McDaniel so much that there's a few pieces that I'd want to at least leave the room with. And what I mean by thinking about the team level is you can slot in specific players. Like, if there's certain dudes that you're just like, some folks are get their guys drafters,
right?
Like,
which doesn't really consider cost, right? Particularly in an auction.
Exactly.
Okay.
And so what you can do is you can potentially box yourself in by saying, like, look, I am leaving there, as one of the owners in Eco did this year. He's like, I am not leaving this draft without Bijan and Brees. I think that the macro for this year is going to be the new young thug backs are here. They're getting all the touches and producing. So he went and he got his guys. Cool. That is a way to do that.
What percentage of his budget was that, though?
Like a lot. like a lot. And that's how you end up having way too many commanders on your roster, is you end up,
you got to fill it in somehow.
You got to fill it in elsewhere. And then, for me, like, the reason that the question of what teams would you be most frustrated to not have exposure to is, it's a personal question,
Well, yeah, we have our own biases and our own issues. I'm a fan of if you're a fan of the Panthers, you're not going to sit here and be like, man, I really want the Falcons to do really well, or the Buccaneers to do really well, or the Saints, or even maybe you still have Sean Payton hate and you don't want to see
and vibes
the Broncos.
Matter. Yeah. You want to have alignment with stuff you want to see. And when I'm thinking about that, it also kind of incorporates the question, which teams are you personally probably higher on than others? Because one of the biggest edges in fantasy that we talked about last year is, if you are early to a breakout team, or, as the commissioner of Eco is really big on, if you are early on a team that we all think is going to be hot garbage, or at least useless, but actually they're useful, they don't necessarily have to be like, the Bucks are his example.
Okay.
He's starting to think, like, feels like nobody's really talking about the Bucks.
New offensive coordinator, kind of the same
if you don't,
pieces. Mike Evans, a year older.
If you don't super believe in Atlanta, because this is, for me, one of the things that this exercise revealed to me is, like, it could be Panthers bias, but, like, okay, sure, Kirk Cousins is there now, coming off of an Achilles, but whatever. Kirk Cousins is there now, and there's a coach who isn't Arthur Smith, and they have a soft schedule. Like,
it's not coaching malpractice.
Cool. Yeah. I see all that. I understand it. But me personally, I'm like, we're just giving them credit that, like, this is happening and it's Falcons to the moon. I could be wrong. I was dead ass wrong at the start of last year about Detroit graduating from real good to for reals good. And this is also important because not just in your draft, you got to be willing to adjust your priors in season as it happens. Yeah. Like, it became pretty darn quickly apparent they had made that leap. And so I'm then trying to get back in on that. The Rams last year were one where I was on your show very loudly banging for, hey, roster or waivers are going to run this week. You want to shell out for Kyron and Puka. It sounds like they've gotten there. Did I go into the campaign thinking, man, the Rams really could be? No, but the second that came out, adjust.
Isn't that a case of Sean McVay is a coach in general that you can trust? You just have to know who he's going to identify.
Totally. And on that, so for me, the teams that I was, I'd be most frustrated to not have exposure to: Houston, Miami. One that I failed on, unfortunately, is Philly. I kind of
You
think
do like Philly?
I do.
Wow.
Because it's their perennial contenders. They were like, what, 14-1 at some point last year. And then the wheels came off and it started going bad. But because of that, and it seems like there's some recency. Now, I'm not a Saquon guy.
Yeah.
Everybody has a price, especially in auction, but I'm not a Saquon guy. However, I do kind of just have this feeling of like, they're probably not being priced correctly because it looks like we're not really talking about them despite being perennial NFC duders. Another one that I got.
So now I disagree on Philly. Sure. I thought that Shane Steichen might have been the secret sauce for them. So he goes to Indy last year. Yeah. I thought, Sirianni struggled a little bit to control them at the end of the year.
Which he did.
There's been some reporting about some unrest there personality-wise.
Yeah.
And then particularly between him and Hurts, and I like Hurts, but Hurts still ultimately to me is more dangerous as a runner than a passer. So I worry with Hurts and Barkley, where does that, share kind of go in the red zone in particular? And then now Barkley, I would assume, is going to eat into Brown and Devontae Smith, into their catches.
Potentially.
So I just don't know if I'm ready to roll. And then you have the Kelsey retirement to me. Kind of a linchpin in the middle of that offense to me.
I would love. Honestly, this isn't even about pulling against Philly. I just think it'd be really funny if the tush push was slightly nerfed because maybe it really was Kelsey was the key and it's not that Jalen Hurts can apparently squat a tank. Like that is apparently not the key. But on that's why this is such a good exercise, right?
Yeah.
Because you might be out on some of those. Oh, just lastly, the last major one who I absolutely did get meaningful shares of, Detroit. Yes. I've come completely full around on that.
Have you looked at, I know you have, but have you looked at actually Detroit's schedule this year?
A little.
Do you know that they play 4 total games outside?
It's all indoors, bro.
This entire season.
All indoors.
Like, that's wild.
I did not place the bet.
Wild to me.
DraftKings is the partner of choice around these.
Yes, correct.
So cool. Well, at one point, Jared Goff was something like plus 2,200 for MVP, which like I haven't checked the price lately. I didn't book it then, but I will say that I did upon seeing exactly what you just referenced, that it's all indoor all the time this year. I'm kind of like, maybe. Anyways, Detroit was a big one for me.
Here are their outdoor games this year. Stop me when you get concerned. Green Bay, for sure.
Yeah.
Right? They're at Green Bay. They're at Chicago. They're at San Fran. They play 3 total games that are not in a perfect environment, climate-controlled conditions.
Yeah.
That's got... And they also... that's just... That feels really, really important to me, especially... I'm also one of those guys who loves to put the ending first. I always look at those like weeks 15, 16, 17 and say,
totally.
Whoa, now wait a second. I'm going to be in the playoffs. I got piped that one year where Kurt Warner was throwing it in the snow at the Patriots and they ended up, it was a disaster of a game. So I'm just...
You know how I lost Eco last year? Okay, so this was my roster by the end of Eco, okay?
This is like your primary league, or do you only do one league?
Oh, no. I have a whole...
You're not an only one league person.
I'm not no.
See, I only do one NFL league, and I'll do the one with you this year because it's an auction, and I think it's different. It'll be fun. It'll be with our listeners. So come join, but real quick, tell us, people come join us, even if you're not in the league, come check us out at the Tap Yard Wednesday.
Yep.
We'll be out there at 7:00. Come see us. The King will be there. I got the number on the bottom here. My glasses aren't on, but it's 919-306-8598. That's 919-306-8598. You can text the King at any time. Say, hey man, I got a question. Who should I draft? Or who should I target in my draft? Or who should I start this week? Or just
anytime. And on
anything
that, for OG fans, now only for folks who have bumped up to the paid plan and they're actually, getting the exclusive content. Well,
that's OGTriangleMedia.com.
OGTriangleMedia.com.
Yep.
If you are a member, one of the things that I will do for you is if you text in hit the DMs. I've learned, by the way, apparently, Julia, you kind of got it popping on socials.
Yeah, I do.
You kind of do. If you text me 919-306-8598 and you are a member of OG Fans, I will record a review of your league's draft. So
I love it.
Yeah, you can send me the sleeper screen grabs. I highly recommend sleeper, but anything. If
Okay,
you've
now
got whatever you want.
What is sleeper? Talk to me, because
sleeper is the most.
We just had Vance up here, and he was saying, "Oh yeah, sleeper. We just switched as a league. It's the best thing I've ever seen." Blah blah. And I'm not getting paid by sleeper. I'm just pointing it out.
If they want to pay me, holler at your boy, because near as I can tell, they are the most.
So it's an actual app.
It is
an app there.
It is an app, and apparently it's like the most well-run tech company that exists.
Okay.
Because my God, not only is the app, when you use it, just light years beyond Yahoo, ESPN, any of the other ones. Part of it's not just that it's a great looking UX, UI, and it's really easy to use. You can change any scoring settings really, really nicely, which is why we do point per first down, which rules. But aside from that, their interface for just looking at people's rosters, trades, all of that is just so beautiful and simple and assembled really nicely. The only thing that they don't do, which we were just talking about, is they'll give you a nice little weekly summary, but they don't really do a nice written up auto-generated report on your league. So some folks that have been transitioning from Yahoo or ESPN, they kind of get those, have been saying, "Oh man, I missed that." The kid got you.
You're on it.
I got you. But on the last thing with the thinking about which teams would you be most frustrated on, which teams are you probably higher on than others? This kind of goes to this idea of what you're trying to do in advance of a draft. You can construct a build. And I've had conversations with folks, Tom K, Guy and Eco, who just smashed his draft, in my opinion. You know, any strategy will work if you get the right guys, right? If you had the crystal ball and you just nail, well, you don't need to do any builds, or it's just like get the best guys as they're available at the best prices. Cool. But one approach that you can do is to play around on your own with different scenarios that don't necessarily have exactly, okay, I'm going to get this guy in here. It could, but if you think about something like a construction, for instance, you might be familiar with hero RB or anchor RB.
Yeah.
So the idea is
take one near the top of the draft and then fill it in the rest of the way because you have one of the studs.
That's an example of a build.
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, you know, roughly, okay, I'm going to pay, or in snake, you know, in the first or second round, I'm going to use that amount of capital on one running back that I believe in, and then largely punt on the position until way later. Or you can think about, you know, tight end.
Now how much of that strategy is dependent on, is it a PPR? Is it a full PPR?
No,
is it a half PPR?
Your scoring settings, especially as you start reading stuff, point per first down performs differently from full PPR versus 0.5 PPR. Also, roster slots. We tend to do, and this is what Joe Wagon will be, very flexy leagues, meaning you must start one running back, you must start one wide receiver. Beyond that, there's multiple RB/wide receiver and even a wide receiver/tight end. That means you don't have to start two running backs.
Two and two.
And right. Which
2 and 2 tight end flex.
The other biggie, I'm a huge advocate, and this is what Joe Wagon is, for 6-point passing touchdowns.
Yes, I agree.
And if you read stuff, you'll see things like CJ Stroud is just every experts, what do they know? Every expert that writes their piece, like Matt Berry, who I love, but his number one fade of guys I hate, and you're seeing this everywhere, is CJ Stroud. And the whole thing is, well, he's purely a pocket passer. In order to generate significant value, he's going to have to. Well, if you're in a 6-point passing touchdown league, that's not necessarily the case. He'll still need to improve production.
Sure.
But guys like him, Burrow, folks who might be really, really kick-ass QBs are no longer disqualified as being smash values just because they don't run as much. So know your settings, because that does for sure impact what you do. And the last, well, I say the last thing, but one other thing about builds, it can, even if you are planning on just letting the value for, you know, and navigating that, cool. it can still be very useful to see how different things might play out so that you have some sense in the auction or in the snake of where you might want to take this thing. The guy other than Tom, who I think just crushed this year's eco draft, it brings me no joy. This guy, David Mueller, he's built like a Rottweiler. He's way smarter than he looks. And he, I think, nailed this year's draft. And part of what he did, his build, was he effectively paid nothing for quarterback. He just walked away with Caleb, which, I think it's worth a bet. And then he paired that with DJ Moore, who also was priced pretty far down. And then what that allowed him to do was take some slightly bigger swings on guys like a Derrick Henry, on I think he came away. What was the other thing that I really liked about what he did? He also came.
You're big on the stack too.
Huge on stack.
So you said Caleb Williams, DJ Moore.
And then if you look at his wideout rooms, so one, because it is point per first down scoring, his backs, he did a hero thing with Derrick Henry, but then beyond that, he got real good prices on Gus Edwards, who,
Gus bus.
It's a slam back
out
situation.
Out
with Harbaugh, especially, again, this is not PPR. This is point per first down. So,
okay, real quick.
Yep.
For those like me who don't know,
mm-hmm.
If it's 3rd and 1 and the Gus bus runs for a first down, picks up a first down.
Full point.
That's a point.
Full point.
Okay.
Because that is what the game is played for.
Correct.
That is,
Same with if you caught a pass for 12 yards, you get points for both catching the yardage and getting the first down.
That's right. And this is where, so I left with Amon-Ra St. Brown, who I view as the safest.
Safe indoor. Yeah, as long as he doesn't get
I love him. But that's exactly right. And then if you look, he's got his slam back there. He also... Bucky Irving, who the only thing you really need to know about Bucky Irving on the Bucks is he is a mystery box not named Rachaad White.
Yeah.
And there are quite a few folks who, is that a mystery box that's not Rachaad? Oh man, I heard somebody brought a mystery box that isn't Rachaad White. That is intriguing to some folks.
My team was so bad last year that I had CJ Stroud and Rachaad White, and I was still terrible.
And Shad did a darn good thing.
He did.
There's
by the end of the year. By the time I was eliminated.
But
let's do this. I want to get into some of the teams that you think we should avoid. I also want to get into some of your thoughts on that auction and the value of the auction.
Yeah.
And why you prefer that.
Cool.
But we do need to tell our friends. I want to do some Groove Wagon, but I want to do my friends from DraftKings first. OG24 is that promo code. Go to DraftKings, download the app. DraftKings Sportsbook is your friend. If you haven't yet and you are a new customer, okay, use that promo code OG24. You get $250 in bonus bets, okay? So you bet $5, then you get $250 in bonus bets. If you're not familiar with bonus bets by now, these are bets that are of no risk to you, okay? You bet them. They're yours. On your way. Figure it out. You'll enjoy some of the parlays and all the different offers that they have. If you're also new to gambling and you go download this app, you're going to sit here and go, yeah, but I don't like betting on straight games. I don't like this. First touchdown scorer, any touchdown scorer are some of the best odds, the best way to gamble on the NFL. Who's going to score the next touchdown? There's so many different ways. If you don't know yet, or even if you signed up for the apps during basketball season, guess what?
Learn.
Guess what? NFL gambling is the best. It is the best for a reason.
Discrete events you can bet on.
Exactly. So OG24 is that promo code. Again, when you bet $5, you will get $250 in bonus bets as a new customer. And now, since we are national, I have to play this disclaimer.
Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 and over. Age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/ftball.
All right, before we get into the teams that we're thinking, let's try our best to avoid them. This is the segment that I really could have used last year or I just wasn't listening. Okay, Panthers, Giants, stay away. You, sir, in addition to being the king of fantasy sports, that damn wagon.com, the Groove Wagon beverages. This is my preferred chiller drink of choice because you're Delta 8.
That's right.
Okay.
Yes.
I don't know what it is about Delta 9s, but they make me sleepy. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a bad thing.
Time and a place.
But everyone knows who saw the episode from Nature's Relief on Western Boulevard. Man, was that a instant nap for me. So when I go to the tap yard and I go to the other Bowstring, Peace Street, and I go get a Groove Wagon, I get the Fence Hopper. I can drink 2 or 3 of those, and anxiety goes here. I'm like more of a chill kind of space. I'm not sleepy. I'm still aware of what's going on because the other ones can really zone me out.
It can.
They can really zone me out.
Only 10 calories because the beer.
And they're not sweet.
No,
and I would like to stress that to some people because, like every alcoholic seltzer at this point, and it's like this contest to see who can make it sweeter. And I'm not saying I don't like these things sometimes. I do.
Time and a place.
I do. But I really prefer the Fence Hopper. That's the citrus type flavor. That's the one where I'm like, okay, you got this one absolutely correct.
The beer folks agree, and I thank you for saying that.
Yeah, so that's thatdamnwagon.com. I mentioned P Street. That's normally where I go and buy them as a package store. And Tap Yard. You can go into the Tap Yard and buy them to go there as well.
Yes.
You know that.
You can. Triangle Wine Company is a good one in Cary. They have us at Bond Brothers. I don't think they do grab and go. Clayton Beverage is a good one. There's a bunch. And you text me, you tell me where you are. I'll tell you the best place to score. Also, on the DraftKings note, the bonusing. Always be bonusing.
Yeah.
ABB. Yes. Always be bonusing. The teams that I'm looking a little sus at, I already told you Atlanta. And again, look, if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Okay, I'm wrong all the time. I say a lot of things. But Atlanta, I'm just not ready to give them the bag yet. Maybe
you're
they
saying
get there.
Bijan Robinson at running back, or you're saying more of the receiver end where people are thinking because it's Kirk Cousins, he has a track record.
Any and all. Bijan is phenomenal.
Okay.
Talent-wise, my goodness. I see all that. He looks like a Lamborghini out there. Like him and Brees both, I love the looks of. I'm actually super all in on the Jets. I think they're going to be fantastic. I did not list them in my teams that I was like, I don't want to leave without a piece of them. But
because the season could last 4 games.
Season last 4 games. Also, they're generally priced pretty darn up there. Yeah. So a lot of the value.
Yeah, Garrett Wilson and Brees Hall are 2 guys that you're not going to be able to get
KC, it's not at all that I'm not saying they're going to be good. They're just really pricey. Rashee Rice and I guess Xavier Worthy are actually gettable guys. But I don't know. For some reason, I just wasn't going to be that mad about leaving without them. Also,
what do you think of the Chiefs this year? Because we were both on the same page last year. And then, of course, they figure out a way to get into the playoffs and win the damn thing, even though they weren't even close to being the best team in football last year.
Andy Reid is such a good coach, and they do seem to be playing for the playoffs, Yeah. They're going to get to – they were like 5-5 at one point, and then like, okay, well, like –
yeah, losing to Russ and the Broncos.
Right, we got time to do the thing. One thing that I am exposed to this year because I have not been making a priority of acquiring Chiefs, there's a reap the whirlwind potential of, oh, y'all aren't putting respect on our names, and Andy Reid is a genius. Patrick Mahomes is him. If they break...
Can I give you the one I took? Pacheco.
It
was my first running back pick. It was the 4th round.
Cool. Well, for starters, that's a coherent build for sure.
Okay.
A 4th round hero spot there. Okay. I don't hate that.
Okay.
My brother is pretty in on Pacheco. I'm not even saying I'm out. I just don't know enough. I'm unfamiliar with his game. I saw the playoffs and that sure, cool. I used to be a pretty big Jerick McKinnon guy.
I was going to say, he's gone.
He's gone. He's gone.
I know they have like some Australian rules football player or whatever else they got going on.
Chase some dude.
Oh, they got the guy from Ball State too. Steele.
Yeah. Right, exactly. So Pacheco probably has this workload. Okay. But on the teams who I'm like not there, my number one, because at the end of last year, my notes were like, I always start at the end of the season prior, my notes of dudes and situations I like, so I don't forget in next year, because it gets a little hazy there. My number one was, my God.
Says the guy who sells weed drinks for a living.
What? Why did it get hazy? I can't imagine.
What are you talking about,
exactly. So because of that, I like number one with a bullet was Kyren. I loved Kyren so much. I love the Rams last year, what they were putting out by the end of that year. Oh my God. I was like,
they were dialed.
Dude, even if they're going to be priced up going into this year, I was like, that's fine. I'll make it happen because I think they're like that. Dude, the vibes in LA since the season ended have been atrocious.
Okay.
Puka already banged a knee. His bursa is doing weird stuff. I'm not going to lie. I don't really know what a bursa is, but I know it's not good generally.
Anything that's associated with a sack is probably not great.
No sacks. Knee stuff, squickish. Stafford, who is getting a little long in the tooth and has had kind of a checkered injury history just generally. He's already got a little hamstring thing. And then most concerningly, by far, Kyren, who already lost a year to foot stuff, missed 4 games last year to foot stuff. He tweaked an ankle before training camp that had him like that. He was a little late in getting to camp. Apparently he's all fine. McVay is one of these coach speaky ones who loves to project optimism.
Yeah.
So you can't really get a good read there, but I was planning on just, I just said, like, don't necessarily be a get your guys guy. Yeah. But then there's situations where it's like, just say a number and I'm going to say higher. I thought Kyren was going to be that this year, but the vibes in LA have been so bad that I'm really squickish there, even though,
I feel like Blake Corum, the pick there too, like he could be one of those guys who comes in and pops.
I'm furious that I did not leave with Blake Corum because that is very much. Now, I don't think Blake is going to eat into the workload right away, because if you listen to McVay, even though they use the 3rd pick, his thinking on that and what all the beat reporters have been saying is they're obsessed with Kyren. And that is typically a McVay hallmark, is when he has the guy and he truly believes in him, they force feed him until he throws up. Most importantly, not only do they throw to him, but they run in close. They run in close, and they're good at it. Love that for.
I would not have
Kyren.
guessed the Rams on your list. I got 2 guesses though who might be on your list of teams to avoid.
Yeah.
We've said his name too many times now. Arthur Smith, now at the OC with the Steelers. I'm not quite sure what's going on with the Steelers. I think Russ starts the season, and then maybe they try to turn it to Justin Fields at some point, but I think it's a Russ show. You got Pickens, you got Jalen Warren. Yeah. I'm not really sure what's happening. Their offensive line is shaky.
I think they could potentially be a gruesome, terrible offense.
Yeah.
They're, maybe they're not Giants level. Danny Jones is, we'll get there. Yeah. But yeah, I am pretty darn out on Pittsburgh.
I mean, you can stay there in Cleveland too with Chubb being hurt.
I saw this preseason. I saw Crab Meats doing things out there. Jameis is already involved. Oh my God. Like, they look hideous as well, but they're like, to your point, they seem kind of known hideous. I don't think there's that many folks that are like, maybe there's sneaky value in Cleveland. Pittsburgh, I don't know that they're necessarily sneaky value level, but I just, for the record, I do think that they could be terrible. Yeah. The Giants, even with Neighbors. So I left with Malik Neighbors. I left Eco with Neighbors. I kind of wasn't planning on it, which is especially hilarious because it was it was an auction that I had triggered, and then I got him, whatever. But the Giants, Danny Jones is now and I say this with Cam Akers apparently looks good in preseason, whatever. Cam Akers was the worst dude to get prominently featured in an offense until McVay pulled him, which is why I was so telling your listeners, go get Kyron. Akers is dust, and they've realized it. Danny Jones is garbage.
It's not going well for him.
Is garbage.
And I thought Dayball did such a good job of Josh Allen. He did such a good job that first year with Jones. Obviously, he was dealing with injuries last year. Saquon was a mess. The offensive line is a perpetual mess. The receivers are really not.
But again, who are we really in on there? The reason that I find this a useful exercise is like there's truly down bad, terrible teams where it is like maybe avoid a specific piece. I just said that, and like, Singletary, I do own some neighbors only because like he will immediately be the best player on that team and will get a million bajillion targets. But teams,
there's some other layups out there. I mean, Minnesota with Sam Darnold.
Yeah.
I mean, surely we're staying away.
Well, here's the only thing on that though. KOC is a real good coach.
Okay.
And they turned an astronaut into a guy who won a football game, possibly even a couple, on like 36 hours notice and zero playbook, just because KOC is like, look, I can give you sign language and we'll figure this out. He might be a good coach. And also Justin Jefferson is the sort of dude who like it
could have an empty calorie season because that's who he is.
Because he does have it like that. Of the teams who are expected to be good that I am out on, Atlanta is the biggest one.
Okay.
The vibes in the Rams really, really do concern me. And then the next one, nuclear. I don't love what I'm seeing out of San Francisco right now.
Oh, okay. A little Super Bowl hangover?
I'm a little worried about Christian. He had a calf thing, and whatever.
He was healthy last year. Tore it up, but I'm also one of those like, well, what you did last year may mean you're going to go the other way.
And the Ayuk situation, that guy is phenomenal. They have to stop playing games with him. It will just shock me if it's not a CD situation where eventually they're like, okay, but like we do want to win football games.
Yeah.
Here's your loot. But this is one that like, this is not necessarily the hard-hitting analytical take. This is just like, I don't know, man. For whatever reason, I'm not finding myself needing to leave with San Francisco players. That is far and away the spiciest. I mean, the Rams one is pretty spicy too, but I'm not like especially needing to leave with those pieces. The last thing on San Francisco and on injury stuff. So the latest research on injury prone is the way most folks think of injury prone is this guy has had a lot of injuries, so he's injury prone and I'm going to avoid him.
Mm-hmm.
That's not actually the right way to think about it if they're generally uncorrelated injuries. Where you get a problem is a Kyron Williams situation of it's been multiple injuries and they're correlated in the same zone, like a foot, an ankle, something like that. So Cooper Kupp is one who, interestingly, seems like he's in really good health, even though he has been historically, he's missed a lot of time. He's had various things. The thing with that is, it's not that those have necessarily been hyper concentrated or correlated. Anyways, just on McCaffrey, I'm kind of deviating a little from the correct way to think about injury and saying, but also it's just vibes. Like
sure.
I'm like slightly skittish there.
They did lose the Super Bowl too. Like I'm a big believer in that one.
In the hangover.
Like I'm big on that one, other than, these teams who figure it out, like the Chiefs, the 1 year come back and like, oh, look at us. But that might be Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes really are that big of an exception.
And then I guess the last one for me that the Colts just kind of with like Anthony Richardson.
What a wild card.
Total wild card. My friend Mueller, the big Rottweiler guy, he pointed out that his squickishness around Anthony Richardson is that his specific injury, the AC joint in his shoulder, That's the same thing that took Cam Newton, granted at a much further point in his career, is already getting way up there in years.
But yeah.
Yeah. So it is definitely different than that. But that is the injury that took him from Superman to out of the league in pretty short order, because it was like he already was not necessarily the most accurate passer. And then it took his arm to like real spooky. So I'm a little skittish on Anthony. It is Richardson, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I always get him, and because I'm old and I drink weed, I always get him confused with the Hooper on OKC or Minnesota, Anthony Edwards.
Yeah,
I just always get
the Ant-Man.
Dumb guy things. Anyways, I'm a little skittish there. Their receiving core in general, maybe there's some value there. Michael Pittman, for instance. Josh Downs I actually did like before he had his injury thing.
Another guy on my team last year.
John Taylor is a guy that I hugely believe in his talent. I really do. And especially if they do commit to smashing on the ground, like, yeah, I can see that being a big bounce back year. I just would rather pay up for Bijan or Brees if I am going to do, or CMC, if I'm going to do that. His pricing can get a little up there. And also, maybe he has lost a little something. I don't know. I'm kind of out on Indy of the other ones that are like expected to be relevant.
Well, we gave you a lot to think about. So we will see you guys next week. We'll do this again. We also will be again in person next Wednesday, the 4th, September 4th. We will be at Tap Yard over off of, technically, I guess, Atlantic. It's like, to me, it's between Atlantic and Capitol, over by Runology over there. So come check us out, 7 o'clock. The King will be there. You can always text the King with your questions, 919-306-8598. That's 919-306-8598. You can also go to thatdamnwagon.com to get your chiller beverages. I'm looking forward to our auction draft next week. If you guys have any questions, again, you can always text them, or you can send me a DM at Gilio_OG. We will do this again right here next week on the OG Gambling Syndicate.